Welcome back to Entertainment Maniac. I'm your host Ash, and this is Thursday TV. Well, guys, we have made it. We have made it to the new year, 2026. Hopefully, this is going to be the year of the channel. I'm not sure. I just say that because I'm like, oh yeah, I started this channel like halfway through December, and I was like, okay, maybe we can do something here. But I don't know. So that's kind of, like I want to make it to the new year and see maybe how the channel, changes over time. But at the moment, I'm still doing these rant videos just to see what works and maybe have a video that, gains popularity. I don't know. That's just kind of the idea at the moment. But I'm going to continue doing what I know how to do best, and that's talk for a long time and see how that works out in the end. But yeah, that's just kind of how it's going to go for the moment. But yeah, 2026, kind of crazy that we've made it here already. 2025 felt like we went through it pretty quickly. It was like a breeze for me. I don't know about you guys, but yeah, it was a pretty quick year. But yeah, we got another year, yeah. So yeah, let's just hope that we have the best year we can. And we all know that we have the great meme reset going on right now. I don't know how true that's going to hold, but it's been 10 years since 2016. So we'll just see how that goes. Anyways, yeah, let's just get right into the video. So as you all know, yesterday was the Stranger Things finale, and before I say anything, huge spoilers ahead for pretty much every single episode of the show will be spoiled here in this video today. So I want to say big spoiler for the entire show. I'll throw something on the screen to say that probably, but I'm just saying that before we get into it, I just like to say I do not want to be responsible if somebody were spoiling the show. Now, Stranger Things has been an interesting ride for me personally, and for a lot of people as well. It seems like these days, especially in the later seasons, there's only two main groups of people. People who hated the show and people who trashed on the show, like beyond belief, and then people who glazed the show beyond belief. And it seems like that there's not many people that believe that there's an in-between. And me personally, I'm one of them because I like to see a show for what it is. I don't judge I judge the art, not the artist. Necessarily, and I just kind of analyze and see what's fair about criticisms for both good things and bad things about a show. And this show, for me, has some good and some bad. And I think that's okay to say. And I feel like that should be a more popular thing to say. If you're not a huge fan of the show, you don't have to hate on the show. I'm personally somewhere in between there because there's been moments that I've really loved about the show and then other moments that not so much. And, it's a pretty fair thing to say. So today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and talk about the characters and kind of connect them throughout the seasons and see how they changed over time, because the show ran for about 10 years and each season feels like a different area, like a different feel of the 80s, and how that works out with sci-fi, fantasy, stuff like that, supernatural, science, yeah, all that kind of stuff. And I feel like that it's important to see how each character changes throughout the seasons to kind of see which part of the show was better for that character, because there's a lot of stuff you can talk about for each character based on each season. And that's why I kind of limited down the characters today to just the main characters of the show. I will be talking about some season exclusives, like characters that only were in one season if they had a big enough role. And I think I've got 25 characters here to go through. So yeah, that's kind of the idea today. And again, I just have one piece of paper that has the names on them and absolutely nothing else. I know what each, I made sure to restudy about some lesser characters just to make sure I remembered, stuff, because it's been a bit since I've watched I watched the whole show recently, but it's been a bit since I've really been invested in it, because watching it through the second time, I already kind of knew what happened. So I kind of tuned out the lower, the less entertaining moments a little bit, because, I've already seen it before. But, I'm just making sure that I'm well refreshed on my Stranger Things knowledge before we get into this video. So without further ado, let's talk about the character. Well, let's do a character analysis of Stranger Things. Okay, apologies, my phone was acting up, but yeah, we are back and ready to talk about it. Okay, so we're going in alphabetical order, and that's just kind of how it's going to go, because I didn't feel like I needed to sort these in any kind of particular order. And honestly, some of the people last on this list are ones that I do have quite a bit to talk about anyways, so it's going to kind of be just a balanced thing like that. But yeah, we're going to go in alphabetical order. So the first character that shows up on this list for me, because they don't have a last name mentioned in the show, and their first name starts with a letter A, so it's going to be first, is Argyle. And if you don't remember who Argyle is, he's a season 4 exclusive character who was Jonathan's stoner buddy or whatever. And I don't know if he introduced Jonathan to weed and stuff like that, but I think he was a kind of a little bit of a bad influence. But he did help Jonathan through a couple of moments when Jonathan Oh, Jonathan. I'm going to talk about him for quite a bit about season 4 because that was like a character that, man, got disrespected so much by the character writing. And we'll talk about that. But Argyle, he kind of like, I don't know, he was not necessarily the best person to hang around with Jonathan because Jonathan was kind of in a low moment, and hanging out with Argyle, and Argyle's a really carefree and like extremely, like he gets extremely stoned throughout the season. Not exactly the best influence on Jonathan, but the character himself was great because like, I mean, you kind of needed one of those characters. It was just kind of that season, you know, because everybody else is in California. Well, okay, so people were in Hawkins, but the other people were in California. That was Joyce and everybody else. And that was an interesting detail to add to the season, that they would move out of Hawkins, even though that isn't this whole show supposed to be about Hawkins, right? So they have like a side plot going on in California that we'll talk about quite a bit more with, you know, like they figure out that, you know, Hopper's still alive and at the gulag and stuff. We have to rescue him. That's like the whole side plot thing, which I really love about season 4. I think season 4 is my favorite because of that whole side plot thing. And also it's just genuinely actually pretty I mean, that's not terrifying, but it's definitely the scariest season for me because, well, I don't know, just like you see what happens throughout this season. It's very intense. It's pretty violent. You know, you got a whole bunch of things going on, but like then you have like the kind of comedic stuff, but it's also kind of sad seeing Jonathan go through all this stuff because his kind of addiction kind of makes him like anxious about stuff because, well, that's what it's going to do to you whenever you're like, you know, getting sober, you're realizing what, you know, you kind of have like a relapse or whatever. But Argyle kind of helped Jonathan through that stuff, but Argyle, man, I don't know if there's a dull moment with him, and like as a person in general, because he was just always high on something. But yeah, he's a great hang throughout the show for sure. Especially like, you know, he actually did have moments like he was the getaway driver and stuff like that. He did help Mike and others like find Eleven and all that stuff. He was a great addition. I think that was a good character to have in the show. So I think he was a great addition for a one-off season. Definitely not able to go throughout the rest of the show, but he's one of my one of my favorite characters for that season, just because like he actually had a value and stuff like that and wasn't just there for the sake of being there. He actually had some moments where he did provide some use to the group, but you know, it's not the best character and he wasn't meant to be like that. They're not taking his character too seriously, but he did have moments which I think were really cool. So yeah, Argyle, great guy. Well, not the greatest of people, but like a great, you know, character to have. Okay, so moving on to B, which has a lot of characters because a lot of characters have the last name with B. So, okay, Murray Bauman. And this guy, I believe he was introduced in season 2? No, that doesn't sound right. I think it was season 3. I can't remember exactly because like it's season 2 and season 3 kind of blend together a little bit with me. Like that's like I can't remember who exactly got introduced when. I know a couple of characters which were introduced then, but like Murray's like I can't remember. I'm pretty sure it's 3 now thinking about it. Anyway, so Murray, he's kind of like the character that just says like what is on everybody's minds. Like he does like some social commentary on like Joyce and Hopper's relationship and even Jonathan and Nancy's relationship, both of which that they had so much tension going on in their relationship that somebody like Murray was needed to like just say the facts, like say what they don't want to say to each other. It's just like, you know, you guys just like get it over with or something, you know, like he's just like there to like speed things up whenever like the writing gets kind of dull. Murray's there to like, hey, by the way, that's not what we're focusing on. There's like kids that are being kidnapped and stuff like that. You know, we gotta, you know, like whenever when he's the one in the room that has like the most like personality, that's when he capitalizes on it. But in other moments, he's like he's not a great character when it comes to other things and stuff like that. And well, what I'm trying to say is that Murray, he's kind of like the opposite of everybody else in situations. Not quite so much in his early days. In his early days, he was just there as like I think they were thinking of him as like a character that was just going to show up for season 3, but I guess the audience reception was good enough that he would be brought back or something. I mean, they had plans for him, but like, I don't know if he was planned to be going through the rest of the show after he was introduced. But like with the whole like Soviet side plot stuff and in the like Cold War stuff, like he was a great addition for that. But in other situations, especially in like season 5, I feel like his character wasn't like, it just wasn't the same, you know? I feel like that season 5 it didn't ruin his character, but there was no more use, like much for him. And like, there's a couple of situations. I mean, of course, like in the finale, you know what he did, but like, it's just like, I don't know, like he didn't have that much of an addition whenever the whole side plot stuff is over. But seasons 3 and 4, he was a pretty solid character. He definitely helped save Hopper. I mean, Hopper would be a dead man if it wasn't for, you know, Murray and, well, of course, Joyce, but like, especially Murray for sure. But like, if there wasn't like Russians involved, his character wasn't really I mean, his character wasn't the best for me. Like, I think that other people can agree, but like, if there's not that whole side plot stuff with, you know, the Russians going on, it wasn't going to work, I think, for his character. But, you know, he also, like, whenever he was with, like, in the situations like Dustin and stuff like that, and, you know, like in season 3, if you remember, like the whole like lab stuff the Russians had going on, that was an interesting part that he had. But like, still, like, if there wasn't that side plot involved, he wasn't going to be that great of a character. And I think that's like something to, you know, like, so he's kind of like back and forth for me. But like in some moments, he's really funny, for sure. Cause like, he's just giving everybody a dash of reality in like moments whenever like the typical TV show tropes are happening. He likes to break the fourth wall on those. And I think that's a great like addition to have, but not every time does his like lines land, especially in season 5 for me. But, yeah, just kind of my take on it. After Murray, we have another character who could be quite divisive because, well, we know what he did, but Martin Brenner. So Dr. Brenner, he was the main guy leading that whole operation, the first operation with like 11 and other kids. And if you saw, well, of course, like at this point, I'm hoping that you saw the Massacre at Hawkins Lab or whatever it's called. That episode with the whole backstory of the other kids and stuff. That episode is such a banger. Still my personal favorite episode of the show. I don't think that any other episode really comes close to that like level of intensity and just like episode building, like the episode building up to something, you know, because it introduces like so many things at once, and it makes so many statements about it too. Just like a really great, like it's an incredible episode, like perfect. Like Dr. Brenner in his early stages, he was just seen as like a guy that was like leading this operation. You have no idea what it was because like 11 has these like superpowers and stuff like that. But to your knowledge, she's like the only one at the moment, and she's just like in some sort of like doctor office, and they're just running tests and stuff like that. But as the show progresses, it becomes more and more supernatural. Although he doesn't really show up in seasons 2 and 3, I don't believe. But in season 4, his character was seen as like more of like a divisive thing. Like he actually did show signs of him, like there were signs of him actually, he cared for 11, but after all that he did to 11 and especially the other kids and everything, it's not enough to like justify what his character did throughout the show. So he's definitely a bad person for sure. Not the most evil of characters. And I definitely had mixed opinions on him, like toward whenever he, you know, the episode Papa, like season 4, episode 7, that episode was like incredible episode because like it showed like it, and obviously it ended his character arc with his death, but like it like kind of made a final statement about who he was as a person to 11 and stuff like that. He was not, I mean, he's not a fatherly, well, he is a fatherly figure, but not in a good way. It's just like, I don't know, like it's a way to conclude his character arc in like the best way it possibly could, because it just makes sense for his character being a bad person, but not like, he's not like chaotic evil, you know, that kind of stuff. He doesn't just do what he wants. He follows like a certain code of conduct for himself and others, but like at the same time, he's just, I mean, the things that he did was pretty awful. But yeah, his character was interesting to have. Obviously not a perfect character writing and stuff, because he didn't like show up at all for like seasons 2 and 3, I don't believe. But like he had an interesting like addition to the show for sure. And we needed a character like that for 11, like to unlock her like frustration and like trauma and stuff. That was like the perfect guy to like capitalize on that. And he actually was one of the people that helped bring her powers back after season 4, like all her powers vanished. So she needed to go back to the lab to get them back to fight who knows what. I can't remember what exactly he wanted her powers back for. But like it wasn't the same good reason that 11 and others wanted, but like he still brought her powers back. So at least we can say that about him, that he was able to unlock her powers again so that she could save everybody and stuff like that. That's like the one good thing he did. But still, the things that he did in the past as compared to season 4, my goodness, like, I don't know. I don't have much more to say on Dr. Brenner. He's just a very divisive character. Obviously, I don't like him as a person, but like, it was an interesting character and definitely had some good additions to seasons 1 and 4, but not 2 and 3. Yeah, so kind of back and forth again. Yeah, so after Brenner, next on alphabetical list, just going through here, we have Robin Buckley. Okay, so here's a character I can confidently say had some high and low moments in terms of seasons. This is like a character that whenever you're talking about seasons and stuff, this is like a moment you can like really like take a look at like throughout the seasons for. Okay, so the deal with Robin is like her character was supposed to be introduced as like, you know, another character that doesn't fit in with the crowd. I mean, we've had multiple characters like that, of course, but like they wanted to do something. Obviously, every time they introduce characters that like stick out from the rest of the crowd, have like something different about them that makes them an outcast. They want to have something different about that character that makes them an outcast for every character. And like, yeah, because like in the original season, you know, you have Will and the rest of the character. Well, Mike, Will, Lucas, and Dustin. They're introduced as the Dungeons and Dragons nerds, and that whole like thing comes back in season 4. It's like a good parallel between the two seasons and stuff. And like, you have multiple characters that do that. I can name off examples in different ways, not just Dungeons and Dragons being nerds or something like that, but like other things too about their social, you know, status and whatnot. If that makes any sense. But Robin was supposed to be introduced as somebody who like emotionally and like her thought process was definitely different, because I mean, she has like ADHD and anxiety and stuff like that. She's really like, Maya Hawke is really good at doing characters like that, definitely, because we've seen it like, I mean, I don't really have many examples because I haven't seen many of her stuff, but you know, like this, obviously Inside Out 2, and maybe, I can't remember what her character was like in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but like, there was like multiple like instances where she was really good at acting these like characters out with like anxiety and ADHD and like, you know, moving from one topic to the next really rapidly. And in season 3, for sure, they definitely did that, like did her character right. And it was I liked her character in season 3 because it made sense. Like it wasn't kind of thrown up in our faces like how she was different. And there's other reasons why she's different too. And I mean, like, you know what it is, and I know what it is and stuff like that. And I don't have a problem with that, obviously. It's just like whenever you take that like difference about her and then like kind of put it up, like throw it up in your face and stuff like that, instead of like putting it in with the plot, you know, like kind of mixing her character and making it make sense in the plot, instead of just being like, oh yeah, by the way, we forgot to add a Robin scene, you know, and so we're just gonna like just throw that in there, you know, and just kind of all in the midst of everything, just and like make everything like stop just so she can have that, you know, those scenes in season 5. That was kind of annoying for me, and I hated that, like, for a character, because it just kind of went downhill each and every time you made a scene like this, instead of like mixing her in with the plot like in seasons 3 and 4. I mean, season 4, she wasn't like, I mean, season 4 had a lot of competition because a lot of characters peaked in that season. That was like peak writing for a lot of characters in the show. So she had a lot of competition that season and wasn't like one of the best characters in season 4. But season 3, she was definitely up there because like other characters were kind of like, some characters had like some of their lowest moments in that season. Other characters had good moments, but Robin there, she was a new character and definitely a different, like a change of pace to the audience and stuff. So she's an interesting character to have in season 3, but as we go on, we see more and more characters kind of like her, and it kind of just makes her not stick out as a character anymore as like a valuable character, but more as like a sore thumb. And it's really annoying that had to happen to her character. But in terms of season 3 though, it was really good because, I mean, we all know like Steve, you know, he's been having moments, you know, and stuff like that in the show. Like he's questioning like things, because in season 1, you know, he's seen as like the typical bully, but you know, at the very end of season 1, he had his redemption arc. Season 2, you know, is kind of like a middle thing or whatever. But season 3, he was like, he was constantly catching strays, and I think that was a great like character development for his character, because as we go on, his character just gets better and better throughout the show. And there's multiple characters that do that, but I don't think anyone quite like Steve, because he had the lowest of lows in season 1. But in terms of like the finale, of course, he had that redemption arc, but then the rest of the show, he just got better and better. And in season 3, whenever he was just like, again, catching strays and like everything bad was just happening to him and stuff, Robin was there to like, I mean, be comedic about it and stuff like that. They're like a great pair for like that show, and like a great like you know, friendship that they had there, and that kept progressing throughout the season really, really well. It's a really good like interactions between the two and stuff like that, including like with Dustin and everybody else. You know, just a great like it was a great plot that was going on there. They didn't destroy it, but as the show went on, it kind of just got like less and less significant. However, I will say at the very end of season 5 in the epilogue, whenever Steve, Nancy, Jonathan, and Robin were all together, like older and stuff like that, and they're all like sharing beers and stuff like that. That was a really cool scene to have. I think that was like a great way to like kind of end off the show for those characters. But kind of in the middle of the end of season 3, and maybe there's moments in season 4 where she was great, but like after that, it just kind of didn't hit the same until like the epilogue. Like there was just like moments when I was like, kind of don't, you know, care for a character as much anymore. It's just kind of unfortunate that had to happen, you know. But like in season 3, for sure, she was a great character. So that was kind of like a character that as it goes on, just kind of, she doesn't overstay her welcome, but they definitely kind of drag out like some certain parts about her character a bit too much and kind of make it a bit extensive and like kind of exasperating to like watch as a person. But like season 3, for sure, she was a great character. So that's what I have to say about her. Another character that kind of does almost the same thing in terms of like getting like worse and worse a little bit, and then has a redemption arc at the very end of the show. Not redemption arc, but like has a high moment at the very end of the show because of the scene that he shares with the rest of the, older kids. Jonathan Byers. So Jonathan, man, season 1, I'm going to tell you, great character. Because like season 1 had a lot of characters like being like really good characters, but I don't think any character peaked in season 1 except for Jonathan. Because, he was seen as like, he was the older brother of Will. Will vanished. And I will say season 1 for a lot of people is the scariest season. And I get that because the whole kidnapping like idea of Will and stuff like that and vanishing. And we didn't have any idea about this like sci-fi. I mean, we knew it was going to be a sci-fi show, but we didn't know how sci-fi he was going to get. Because at the moment it just seemed like he was just kidnapped, and like in a small town, whenever everybody's like, like the whole plot idea was really scary. Like I remember whenever we were like, my dad was showing this show to so my mom watched the show, like my dad and mom, they watched it before I did and stuff like that. And before like I really came into the picture, well, no, I was still in the picture, but like there was a time when she was like a really big horror fan. But after like having like, I don't know, like I guess as we got older and stuff like that, and we were like around the age whenever like we were like, I guess Will's age at that time or something. I don't know, like the thought of season 1 really terrified her. And like when she was rewatching the show, she just couldn't rewatch season 1. And I totally get that because she was able to rewatch the rest of the show because it wasn't necessarily tied to like kids vanishing. They were like around the kids' age and stuff like that. And we were older at this point, but like at that time, it would just be like a really scary moment for parents for sure. So I think I get that why season 1 is like the scariest season among many parents. But like, I'm just saying Jonathan, like in the midst of all that was a really, really good character because he was kind of adapting the trope of like the older kid that's like, my brother, he's vanished and I want to help, find him and stuff. But we didn't really see that kind of stuff in a show like this before. Like, in shows whenever like kids are like vanished and stuff like that, usually don't have like the almost like in terms of like, like you don't really have a healthy brotherly relationship that goes on in those kinds of things. At least I haven't seen much of that. But Stranger Things did something different. They had a character who really cared about his brother to the point that he would do all of these things, even when his mom was kind of going insane. Like Joyce, she was kind of a nut in the first season. I mean, a great character, don't get me wrong, but there are moments when like, oh boy, you don't want to mess with Joyce. But like at the very start of the show, she was like vulnerable and stuff like that. She wasn't like mentally strong about her like her character wasn't mentally strong because she was just weakened by like all the things that were happening to her, monetary situations, and then, like her marriage, and then to top that all off, her youngest son vanishes all of a sudden, and all of that just kind of mixes together to make it like too overwhelming for her to handle. So Jonathan has to like kind of like hold the family together, in the first season. And there's moments that like, yeah, like, why would he take pictures of Nancy like that? I mean, Steve honestly had like the most reasonable crash. I mean, all he did was like destroy his camera. But, like obviously I was like, oh man, why'd you do that? Because like he was trying to figure out, finding Will. But to be fair, Steve and Nancy were a thing and stuff like that. And Steve was just, like, why you do that? Like we don't want this to be, like he was doing something a bit suspicious, of course, but he didn't mean it in the way that it looked like, but there's no way to justify that. I mean, it's kind of a fair thing that Steve did, but at the same time, Steve was just a bully in general throughout the first season. Like he went a bit too far, but towards the end of season 1, like he realized that he went too far after getting the whole fight with Jonathan. And that was a really good like moment in the show when Steve and Jonathan, they've been clashing all season, and then eventually they just get into a fist fight, and then Steve's like, he realizes that like maybe I don't have to be like this, maybe I need to change and stuff like that. Even though that Jonathan, pictures they took. But other than that, Jonathan, just in general, like it was a really cool character to have because like whenever he was confronting his dad about things, about his dad, like like Jonathan's dad, what's his name? I forgot the name. He's not a main character or anything. That guy, I can't remember his name. He tried to come back into the picture just so he can get money off of like whatever scheme that he had going on. And then when he realized that, he had to confront his dad about that in front of his mom because his dad and mom were like almost getting back together. But Jonathan had to like stop that because he knows that his dad isn't like actually wanting to get back together with his mom for the sake of love, but for the sake of money and greed and all that. And just a really cool scene to have. Like out of all this like supernatural sci-fi stuff, season 1 was like the most real because he had a very real, like real life situations that could very well happen. And like amidst all that, you have like the sci-fi plot going on with 11 and everybody else. But season 1 really, really just made sure that we were like, hey, we're still on Earth. We got earthly things happening. And stuff like that. So these side plots that happen were really good with, especially Jonathan and Joyce's scenes for sure. Because like what else were you gonna act like if your brother and your son like vanishes all of a sudden, like you think that he's dead and stuff? Like, how do you move on from that after everything that happened to them already, to the buyers and stuff like that? Just incredible like character arc. But unfortunately, as the show went on, I mean, seasons 2 and 3, just, he wasn't, I mean, he was just kind of like moody and stuff like that, but he wasn't like on something like in season 4, because in season 4 you're just genuinely like a sad character to watch. It's just a limping dog at that point for season 4. Just done so dirty. I mean, I've already talked about it, but like what happened to Jonathan for season 4, that was just unjustified for his character writing. I really don't know what they were doing there. Season 5, though, like at that point, it was so supernatural that like any character arcs that were happening, it was just kind of like shadowed by like the main plot that was happening with Vecna and whatnot. So at that point, I really can't recall how Jonathan's character worked out, because like so many other things were happening that didn't concern like the main cast like it did, because like most of season 5 was focused on Vecna. There wasn't really much side stuff going on, and any side plots that were going on were just kind of mixed in there, but they were all related to stopping Vecna. So season 5 at that like level is kind of shallow for character arcs and stuff. But Jonathan, I don't remember him being like a bad addition to season 5. He was just, he's still there. I mean, he's alive, he's got to have some sort of like connection to the plot. So they kind of, his scenes were okay. I mean, but like season 4, not good for him. Seasons 2 and 3 were but season 1, incredible, for sure. But yeah, just what they did to Jonathan was just not fair. However, same cannot be said for the mother of all mothers, Joyce Byers. Man, okay, so Winona Ryder and David Harbour, when they were, added to the show, like they were like the first characters, I'm pretty sure, to be like announced for the show. Winona Ryder and, David Harbour, they're pretty, I mean, they're not A-list actors or anything. Well, Winona Ryder is like the most famous actor that got thrown into the show, and she's like the first credited on all these things along with David Harbour. But like these two characters were already like well-known actors and stuff, especially Winona Ryder, and for her other things, but we won't get into that. But like she was just kind of like brought in, and I don't know what people's like opinions were on her before we saw the show, but any negative opinion on her completely vanished, because she played the role of the terrified mom absolutely perfectly, and I don't think anybody can tell me different, or can convince me a different way on that. She was an incredible character in season 1, and she kept that up throughout the show pretty much. I mean, not season 5, and maybe a little bit season 4, she's annoying here and there, but the whole, whenever it was like the side plot with like the rescuing Hopper and stuff, she was great. But like scenes that weren't concerned with that side plot, kind of annoying. But especially seasons 1 through 3, just she played that motherly character incredible, and I feel like there wasn't another like actor that could really do that, at least not to the degree she did, because her status of fame was set in such a way that she could do characters like this, and it wouldn't like be too much to ask of her, because some actresses and actors in general, they can be so famous that they have to play a certain type of character, or else it just doesn't work, and people can't remember her for the character she played, rather the person she is. So she, like, her status as an actor was perfect for the role, I think. So in terms of casting, perfect casting, but like the character she played, especially through seasons 1 through 3, just like absolute cinema for sure. Same thing with Jim Hopper, but for him throughout the entire show, and we'll get to that. But yeah, Joyce, just an incredible character. And like her fall off wasn't even a steep fall off. Just season 5, her kind of like time as a valuable character was kind of up, because Will, like sometime through like halfway through the season, he didn't really need her anymore. Not in the terms that we need to kill off her character, but her character wasn't needed, like it wasn't as significant like as it was, because her character insignificance was dependent on Will being vulnerable, which is a awful thing to say, but like whenever Will was like all of a sudden became a strong character, I mean, her character arc just kind of was done, like she was just playing the role of the mom now. But like before, she was playing the mom. So like, you gotta give her props for that. Anyway, so speaking of Will, we got Will Byers. So Will, this is like a moment that I can really say with the show that we kind of lost the plot, guys. And I will say we did get the plot back, but we never really had the plot with Will. And let's talk about that. So Will, right? His character is different in every season, but season 1, he wasn't there, obviously. That's the whole point. So we don't really have much to say on that. Season 2, he was back, but he was still like being cursed by like the mind flayer or whatever, but he was like making drawings and stuff. He's being possessed, and he, like, the only cool thing about his character is that he was actually like, that early on, he was like seeing through Vecna's eyes, and he was doing the work of Vecna that early on. So the mentions of like the indirect mentions of Vecna that early on in the show were cool, but his character in general wasn't really that deep of a character. He was just like being possessed at that point. So like he wasn't it was almost like he wasn't like there yet as a character. But in season 3, he was like feeling that thing on the back of his neck that, like, again, showing signs he was still kind of being possessed, but not so much as like the mind flayer was. Still not like, as a character, I still really didn't get it yet. I mean, he was just there. I mean, you know, he was still the Dungeons and Dragons kind of nerd kid, you know, like with the rest of them. But like, he didn't really have that like character importance for the longest time. And even in season 4 too, like he was still just kind of there. I mean, they really didn't like, I mean, he was like just getting emotional for, I mean, there were reasons obviously that we'll see in season 5, but he wasn't really there yet as a character for the longest time. Then all of a sudden season 5, like, oh yeah, by the way, he's got powers. Where did that come from? I mean, like, it's cool that we got that, but like all of a sudden now we're like, oh yeah, by the way, that whole thing, that being possessed, that became an important plot point. I mean, I'm not saying that's bad writing. It's just like, why couldn't we have made that like earlier in the show? He would have been a way better character throughout the first 4 seasons if we had like that sort of plot going on. But no, they had to introduce it so unbelievably late. It's kind of like a controversial, like I might be a controversial opinion, but I just don't see his importance as a character that much until season 5, which is a long time to not be a very important character yet. I mean, like, he does help out a ton. Like, he makes up for it, especially in season 5, but still, man, just wish his character could have been more important in the first 4 seasons. So it's kind of annoying that it had to be like that, but that's just how it worked out. But yeah, season 5, I mean, like, all of a sudden, like, you know, with the, what was the episode called? The Sorcerer or whatever, you know, when it was introduced that he could like combat Vecna and stuff. I mean, at least they brought that plot up, you know, and they capitalized on it for that season. But man, I wish that was like a plot point throughout like seasons 3 through 5 or something, because like coming back after being vanished, like that's an important plot point that he vanished, because that's, you know, the whole driving purpose of the first season. But seasons 2 through 5, he should have been like there, like an 11 character almost, but unfortunately it wasn't. So very unfortunate that had happened. But season 5, he's a great character. It's just like, I don't see it for the first 4 seasons. So after that, we have Ever Famous 11, or Jane, or, well, yeah, 11. There's only two names. Vecna has a lot of names, but 11. So yeah, we got the character to start it all off with the supernatural character stuff. So she, like other characters, especially main characters, had very different like there were different moments, like different importances that she had depending on the season. So season 1, she's seen as like that character that's different, you know, like she helps out in small ways, but like still big ways at the start. But like she's like, you know, she's an escapee from like this whole project thing that we don't really know yet and stuff. So she's just kind of like, you know, like what is she at the moment, you know, still kind of figuring that out. But she finds, you know, she finds Mike and everybody else. And we have like that whole plot going on, and she like saves him from bullies, and like she's there to help find Will and stuff. And there's all that like middle school kids or like elementary kids drama stuff that's happening, like your typical like school kids like sort of thing. But you know, as once you get to the final part of the, you know, the show, we have like her defeating, you know, the Demogorgon, which it's funny that the Demogorgon was like the main thing of season 1, and then it's revealed that there's like a countless Demogorgons later on in the show. But like, you know, the plot progresses, you know, but season 1, you know, she's an important character because there's not many like big moments in terms of like different, like built different characters quite yet. So she stands out easily as like one of the best characters of season 1, because I mean, it's pretty easy for her to be like that when she has these awesome powers, you know, and we have to explore that. But, you know, as we go on, you know, there's more characters that get introduced that it's hard for her to like compete as like the best characters of the season. But season 1, she was definitely up there for sure. But season 2, you know, like we got more, I mean, I don't know if season 2 is like when we brought up the whole romance stuff and whatnot, and kind of got a little cheesy there. I mean, it's like your 80s teen, you know, sort of thing going on, but just kind of gets annoying for me. But I get it, like it's that kind of show to do that, but still kind of annoying. But you know, like her powers are getting explored a bit more, you know, like as her hair grows, like she gets more and more power. Well, actually, I don't know how that makes sense, but her hairstyle changes every season. That's kind of the same for a lot of characters, but like, I don't know, like depending on the season, she has a different like importance as a character. Because like season 1, she stood out because not many characters stood out. But season 2, as we go on, she gets a little less significant, but then she kind of comes back like when she gets her powers back, she becomes a significant character again, but it kind of dies off a little bit throughout seasons 2 through 4. And then she gets her powers back, and then all of a sudden she's like incredible again. But like, I don't know, like season 4 plot was interesting. A bit cheesy because she lost her powers and she thought she could use them against friggin' Angela. Which I gotta say, the Angela side plot, I mean, she got what she deserved. I'm just saying. She's a pretty bad bully. But yeah, I don't know, you know. But when she gets her powers back and, you know, we see Callie again and we got all this other stuff going on, and I think it was interesting to have, but season 1 was a bit built different, I'd say. Season 1 and season 4, definitely her best times as a character for sure, but seasons 2 and 3, like kind of died off just a little bit. I mean, she still had incredible moments, but not quite so much as seasons 1 and 4. Then season 5, obviously she's gonna have her incredible moments because, well, this is the end of the show, so she's got to like really show up with her powers and stuff. So it was kind of predictable what she did, but well, maybe not towards the end. The end surprised me a little, but season 5, she became like a predictably pretty cool character, but not like unpredictable like seasons 1 and 4. Then seasons 2 and 3, she wasn't as cool of a character, but she wasn't predictable necessarily. There were moments that surprised me, but still not quite so much as seasons 1 and 4. Anyways, after that we have. Oh, interesting. I didn't know that they were going to have him as a main-ish character, but let's talk briefly about Billy Hargrove. Now, Billy, he's an interesting subject because he never had a redeemable moment, like a big redeemable moment, because through seasons, wait, when was he introduced? Gosh, wait. Seasons 2 and 3, yeah. Because Max is introduced season 2, yeah. Right? Yeah, that's right? Oh, gosh. Jeez, I'm misremembering things. Whatever. I think it's seasons 2 and 3. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But when he was introduced with Max, obviously he was seen as like a big jerk, a bully to Max. He was never really like a good guy necessarily, especially in season 2. Like he was just seen as like a big jerk, you know. And I feel like they could have like had, I wouldn't say like a moment where he just became like a nice guy all of a sudden, but at least like he could have had like something heroic that he could have done in his last moments, because really all he did was just like, he just died, you know, in season 3. That was just how it worked out. But his character, like post-mortem, like whenever he was haunting Max, that was super cool to have in season 4, because season 4 was like adapting like almost like in a Pennywise sort of way, like Vecna was feeding on the fears of Max and stuff, and he was haunting Max because like what they did to him, like to get like that possession thing out of him, like heating up like the sauna or whatever to get that that thing out of him in season 3. I don't know how to describe that, but there were moments when Billy like had it was interesting because like was it in season 2? I don't know, because Billy and Max's stepdad, terrible dude, maybe even more so than, you know, the dad in season 1 for the Byers. I don't know, but he was like verbally abusing Billy, and I can kind of see where Billy like had to have his rebellious state from, because he's just trying to get away from his stepdad, and like he doesn't want to become him, but like he becomes like that sort of like attitude sort of way, and stuff like that. So I see that, like I feel bad for him in that sort of sense, but he never really had like that redeemable moment. I'm like, wow, you know, like his death was kind of sad. It really was. It was just kind of unfortunate for his character that he died before any redeemable moment could really happen for him. He just didn't have that heroic moment that I was kind of hoping that he would have, because I kind of knew that he was going to die at some point, because that's just kind of how his character like acted. But still, like other than, you know, like the whole like realistic thing that happened to him with, you know, his stepdad and stuff like that, and the whole family situation that he and Max have to go through, I didn't really feel bad for him at much. I mean, his death was unfortunate again, because no redeemable moment, but I feel like that his character writing was not there for, you know, season 3, because season 2 is more realistic and stuff like that, but season 3, like, what were we doing? You know, we could have done something here with his character. Maybe not become a nice guy, but at least do something heroic in his last moments. But I mean, he kind of like I don't know, he kind of kept the mind flared whatever busy, but like that was really all that he did. So it just, I don't know. Like I wish that his character was better than it was. Again, same cannot be said for the next character, Steve Harrington. So we're gonna talk a little bit about Steve here and Dustin. They're back to back. Probably the best like friendship between two characters throughout the entire show, because it keeps progressing as we go on. Because like season 1, you know, he was the bully and stuff like that, but he redeemed himself as we go on through seasons 2 through 5. He just gets better and better and better. Same thing with Dustin. Well, maybe not in season 5 for Dustin, but like you get the point. Like their characters like progressively got better and better as we go on. And maybe there were moments in season 5 where like, okay, maybe not as good as season 4, because they both, I'd say, peaked in season 4. but still the characters were really cool to have because they were genuinely like a good side plot and like relationship, friendship of characters to have. Genuinely like a good one to have throughout the show because like Dustin, he's seen as like the valedictorian, like he's got the perfect mind, but like he's not like physically so much as strong. And then Steve's kind of the opposite and stuff like that. And Dustin and Steve, they kind of like have a rivalry and all that and whatnot, but they're like a great friendship to have throughout the show because it just makes sense, I don't know, like because there's like a missing part to both their characters that kind of just like I don't know, comes together for their friendship throughout the show. And I think that is an incredible thing to like keep going throughout the show. But yeah, Steve, he had like really redeemable moment. He came in with the bat in season 1 and he took down, well, he didn't take down the Demogorgon, but he helped defeat it and stuff like that. And it was cool. But yeah. It was just cool to see his like character progress and in the way it did. I think that's where the writing really peaked for the show is characters like Steve and Dustin because they really didn't do them wrong at any points. Just like when season 5 happened, obviously most of it was focused on Vecna, which I guess isn't a bad thing because well we had to deal with Vecna, right? I mean there was going to be a lot of Vecna that season. That's what you got to expect. So you got to expect like less Steve and less Dustin, but at least seasons 2 through 4. Peak character writing for them, for sure. And you know why. I mean, his character, it just makes sense. I mean, I'm going to say some things, there's some hot takes towards the end of this because about the Wheelers, but at least at the very moment, I don't know, like, I feel bad for, like, you have to feel bad for him, what happened with him and Nancy and stuff like that, and then Nancy just leaves him high and dry for Jonathan. I mean, it was kind of meant to be, of course. I mean, we kind of expected that sort of thing, but the way Steve was treated, at least throughout, like, seasons 2 and 3, you gotta feel bad for him, for sure. And I think that's cool that it happened that way, like, he had that, like, redeemable character arc as we went on, because, like, he started off as just, kind of like a jerk, but when we see, like, his, like, turn of character at the end of season 1, we're like, okay, we're getting somewhere with this character. And then like Nancy, she's got multiple moments where she's just doing things that like, I mean, like the whole party that they went to and she got drunk and then Steve's like, he has to bail her out and stuff like that. But then Nancy kind of admits about like the feelings that she has towards Jonathan and like that, that whole kind of like relationship with him and the relationship he thought that was going to go all the way with Nancy just all of a sudden ends. So, he's really meant like, his feelings are really hurt and stuff like that, but the way he deals with it, like it's the only way that you could possibly think of in that moment because he genuinely thought that they were going to like be together for the rest of their lives and stuff like that. Like multiple things that like you wouldn't expect a character like Steve to have like, wholesome like things about his character. And then they capitalize that as we go on when he's like kind of like being like the one to like kind of like, I mean, he's kind of the one that gets bullied in the group, for season 3. I mean, you know what happens, but just like so many things that come into play to make a really good character and character writing. And same thing for Dustin. I mean, like, season 1, like it's cool the way that Gaten Matarazzo, his character was wrote in the show because, the condition that Gaten had, with his like, what was it, cleft palate, I think, or something like a deficiency with his teeth or something. And they get that written in the show. And like, there's so many like moments in season 1 where it just makes sense for his character to be the way he is, he has that, he gets bullied for that reason, but he's also like incredibly smart and intelligent and stuff like that. But he's also like, he doesn't understand social cues. And I think that's cool how Steve kind of like helps him with that while Dustin helps Steve with some knowledge a little bit. Because I guess Steve kind of needs it. I mean, Steve isn't stupid outright, but he's not the brightest guy. And I think that's cool. They have like that kind of like balance between the two characters. Cause as we go on, Dustin gets better with social cues. And then Steve's not as, he's a bit more bright, maybe more battle intelligence, but so much than like actual intelligence, but like still Steve, like he gets better with that sort of stuff and Dustin gets better with that stuff. So just like they're important characters to have that kind of like help each other out on their like low areas, their low moments and stuff like their weaknesses, they help each other strengthen their weaknesses. It's just a great friendship to have throughout the show. But yeah, Dustin, season 1, got bullied and stuff like that, but he's seen as smart, but social cues weren't quite there. But as we go on, things get better and better about his character, and it just peaks in season 4, like most characters peak in season 4. And then season 5, of course, everything's focused on Vecna, so not as much time for character development or character, stuff. So it's not like his best moments, but like he's still a great character because like he's carrying on, Eddie's legacy when he's getting disrespected. He gets beaten up and he has like a fallout with Steve. And I think that we were all expecting that fight with Steve because like something's bound to happen between the two that doesn't get recovered for quite a while. And then it gets recovered towards the end whenever he, like he thought, he really still cares for Steve. He doesn't want Steve to, just end up dying. And he's like the reason why Steve makes it, I mean, Jonathan saved Steve from falling off the tower, but like, and that was cool to have that redemption. between Steve and Jonathan, because it's never really stated between the two, but they never really liked each other. Like, they never, like, were friends. They kind of were a little, like, they had a rivalry going on, but we didn't know that rivalry carried out through the rest of the show because they never really talked about it. But in season 5, when it's revealed that they still don't like each other, as friends or anything, like, and then, like, they kind of have, like, they make up and stuff, and at the end of the show, like, they're sharing, beers together with the rest of the older, like, well, they're now adults, it's the time skip and stuff, but that moment was cool between those two characters, but especially Steve and Dustin, that friendship, I mean, really strong. But yeah, that Dustin, great. Honestly, these 3 characters that we've been going through, Steve, Dustin, and now Hopper, 3 absolute bangers of characters for sure. Now let's talk about Jim Hopper. So, with Stranger Things, like, before I went into this, I'm like, is this gonna be like that one kind of show where the kids are like the only good characters and the adults are just kind of like annoying and stuff like that? Because I feel like that's the kind of show that would be like. And then we get to Hopper's character. I mean, from the very first moment we meet him, like, you see him, like, in his, like, living situation, his position as a character in Hawkins. Not really, like, he's the police chief, sure, but he's not really, like, taken to the point, like, he's not really got a serious, like, job or, like, anything. Like, nothing's, like, he's kind of, like, living in, like, a state of, like, in between, like, a whole bunch of things, He's not really, like, serious on one thing or another, he's just kind of coasting through life and whatnot. I mean, he's smoking, he's drinking, not in, like, the best physical condition or mental or anything. So we kind of see a lot that's going to go on with this character. And I think it's really cool that they, like, progress the character the way that they did with him, and especially, well, him and Joyce for sure as adults, but, like, Hopper especially, like, there's something special about him as a character that they really, really wanted to have his character arc grow as best as they could. And they really did that, because, like, each season there's something new about him that we didn't know that really, like, makes us care for his character more and more. And then just taking that away from us in season 3, and, like, just the pure, like, I mean, it was really sad. His supposed death scene in season 3 was just absolutely, like, devastating for sure. And then we kind of have, like, oh wait, is he not dead in season 4? I wish that the trailer didn't, like, reveal that. I wish that we would have learned as season 4 went on, and instead of, like, them, like, just being like, oh yeah, by the way, Hopper's still alive. Like, guys, could we have waited? I mean, I know we need to, like, keep, like, everybody anticipated for season 4, but I think it would have been fine if we just didn't, mention that he was still alive in the season 4 trailer, because that would have been, like, that would have done numbers, especially, like, if we were, like, revealed that Hopper's still alive all of a sudden, like, in season 4. That would have been really cool. But anyway, so early days Hopper, though, even still, like, I know that his character, like, I'd say it gets better as it goes on, because, like, the whole, like, fatherly figure that he is to Eleven and whatnot. But even before his, like, eternal greatness as a character happens, even before that in season 1, I mean, what else was he supposed to do? The vanishing of Will, because he vanished without a trace. Like, they're still trying to find clues. Eventually they do find them, but he wasn't the one that finds them, because he's only human. I mean, he's not like, he's like, he's a middle-aged cop that is living in a town that doesn't really have much going on, and he doesn't have that much experience, and he's had past traumas that kind of keep him from, like, socially, like, connecting with other people. I mean, he's kind of like a loner. I mean, he doesn't, like, have the personality of a loner, but, like, he doesn't really have that any, like, relationship connection to anyone because of what happened to him in his past. And it kind of makes sense as a character the way that he acts. He's kind of, like, grumpy and moody and stuff like that, and he's like, I mean, whenever he has to lock in, he really does lock in as a character. I mean, like, he really, like, brings on that, like, cop persona that he has at the end of season 1. But, like, at the very start, we just kind of see him as kind of deranged and stuff like that. But, like, we can kind of respect him as that as a character, especially once we see what happened to him in his past. So let's talk about that. But season 1, still a great character, even if it's not his best moments. Like, he's still a really good character in that regard as a cop. But, like, a kind of small town cop that doesn't really have much of importance yet. But, like, we're going to see it. Still a great character, great personality, and makes sense for his character. But as we go on, his character progresses. Like season 2, when it's revealed that Eleven's still alive. I mean, we all knew that Eleven was going to still be alive. Like, she couldn't just die off like that, like, all of a sudden. But when it's revealed that he was taken in by her and stuff, and he's still kind of figuring out this father, thing, we expected him to just, like, because it was only mentioned that he was married, right? And then he got divorced. Like, that typical, like, sort of, relationship situation that happens with characters like him. But when it's revealed that he was a father too, and the way that his daughter was taken from this world from him, it was really sad to see that. Like, I think we all felt, like, great sadness for that, because the writing of that, like, the scenes that reveal what happened to his first daughter and stuff like that, and the relationship, and that's what destroyed his relationship and his, like, mental state, and the way he acts now is because of what happened. I mean, he was like he had a healthy relationship. I mean, he looked a bit healthier, of course, but he was just genuinely, like, having the time, like, he was like at his happiest moments than when his daughter was taken away by like cancer and stuff like that. That was like such a sad thing to see for him. And it makes everything that happened with his character in season 1 all of a sudden makes perfect sense. And like, I still liked him from the get-go in season 1, like his character in general, but the way that he acts in season 1 makes so much more sense whenever we see what happened to his first daughter. And like, he's becoming overprotective with 11 because he doesn't want to see it happen again, because he's genuinely getting like, he genuinely like takes her in as his daughter and stuff like that. And just so many things like happen that keeps building up that like status as a character. And then like everything that happens with him and Joyce and other characters in season 3, you know, like he's like, again, over like playing the overprotective dad and stuff like that. But he's still like, he's got like that, you know, he's still a pretty dangerous dude. I mean, he's physically strong. He knows how to use a gun and stuff. I mean, he's not dumb. Like he definitely knows how to like handle his job as a cop, especially like as the show gets on and things get more and more dangerous. He becomes like a very strong-willed character and whatnot. But I think that's super cool that not necessarily in season 4, because in season 4, he had that whole like side plot. I mean, he's in the gulag and stuff. He has to escape. He meets Enzo and other characters to help him escape and stuff. He has to get back to 11 and all that. Like he's got that drive for like succeeding. But like somewhere in season 4, you know, he kind of goes back to like that deranged state. Like he has like another vulnerable moment where he shares that, you know, story with his daughter again and stuff like that. But it becomes more like an emotional weight and kind of like holding him back. But like Enzo and other characters, like when he's put in the situation of like life or death situation and stuff like that, and knowing that Joyce is on her way and all that, like she came with, like all these things like bring his character like strong like willedness back all of a sudden in season 4, after, you know, like slowly regressing back to like a vulnerable and like deranged state. He like all of a sudden snaps back and like he becomes a really strong character again. And that sort of sense makes a really cool character arc. Like throughout the show, he has like every season has like probably like one of the best character arcs every single time throughout the show. He's like always one of the best characters every season for a different reason. And I think that's like one of the best character writings in the show personally for me. And from a professional standpoint as well, like one of the best characters throughout the entire show. Even in season 5, and I know this might be a hot take because I know that some people say that season 5 is his worst character moment. I still kind of agree with that, but not necessarily. Because, like, again, with the whole Vecna taking up most of the plot of the show, there isn't really left much over for, like, side plot character development stuff. However, Hopper is able to be like the way that he was written in season 5, you know, especially whenever he didn't have as much moments and stuff like that to really shine as a character. I mean, he was still like a really strong dude. I mean, like he still got his like battle intelligence, you know, like he's still a pretty dangerous guy to, you know, have on your team to like combat like Vecna and everything. And like all the things that he did, really cool stuff. But especially later on in season 5, whenever like he genuinely feels the same fear he has for 11 because he doesn't want her to die as well, because he can't, at this point, he wouldn't be able to live on with himself if he let 11 die. So that's kind of like the whole thing that's holding him back. And especially in the finale, whenever he, okay, well, let's walk through this. So before 11 goes in the sensory deprivation tank, we have Callie and stuff like that. Callie is saying, like telling 11 that you're going to have to go the extra mile. There may be a moment where you're going to have to sacrifice your life. And 11, she slowly but surely accepts that. And to us, we think that, okay, so 11's fully willing to lay down her life. Hold your horses though, because we have a very emotional scene with Hopper and 11 again. Hopper's like, you can't just like, you know, like you can't just give up like that, because with so many people caring for you, you realize what that's going to do to them, right? You may be ready and stuff like that, but I'm not ready to lose you, because you saw how 11 felt whenever she thought that Hopper, like, you know, with all the bombs on his chest and stuff, she thought that he was going to sacrifice his life like that. But Hopper, for a split second, he showed a sign of like a changed mind, because he was about to like lay down his life to save 11, because that's just how like protective he's going to be like that, you know, like he's ready to sacrifice his life. But 11 wasn't ready for him to sacrifice his life. And then whenever the opposite things happen, Hopper was not ready for 11 to sacrifice her life. So it's really cool, like parallel between the two characters, that, and you know, like that brings their like relationship, father-daughter relationship, to like the absolute peak in the show right there. So like for character writing, maybe not the best for Hopper individually, but between Hopper and 11, absolutely perfect writing, I will say. Out of all the maybe flaws that season 5 had, that's probably one of the best things about season 5 is this moment between the two characters. And then, you know, and as the episode progresses and stuff like that, and Vecna kind of haunts Hopper and makes him see things, and then Hopper, like, he gets driven, like Vecna like triggers Hopper to the point that he shoots his gun, but he shoots it at the sensory deprivation tank, and it makes And then Vecna makes Hopper believe that he actually shot through the tank and shot 11 dead, which was crazy. I thought that he genuinely did that. And like the rest of like the episode was like 11 slowly dying and trying to save everybody as she like was like the bullets were starting to appear in her like mind state. I thought that was going to happen. Like she was going to slowly like start to get injured in the mind state as she was dying in real life. I thought that was actually going to happen like in the plot, because that genuinely, like that moment, like it made so much sense that I didn't want to believe it, but it did make sense that that was going to happen to her character, that Hopper was going to be the one to accidentally like fatally wound her. And I was like, that can't be true. And then like he busts her out of the sensory deprivation tank because obviously he wanted to save her and stuff, and it looked like that she was a goner and stuff like that. And you know, and he was like, oh no, what did I do, and it was revealed that she actually wasn't shot, and Vecna just tricked him because he still needed like 11 to like capitalize on him taking over the world or something like that. I mean, like whatever he was going to do. You know, it's kind of unclear at this point, but you know, like it's revealed that she was unharmed, and like, you know, Hopper messed this all up and stuff. And there's like a genuine moment where Hopper kind of screwed everything up, but like not in the way that's like, oh Hopper, why'd you do that and stuff like that, you know, like we were having everything going, like, because Vecna really put him in a state, like Vecna showed him like Hopper's daughter and stuff like that, and like kind of paralleling that to like 11 will die, and then like Hopper's like no, and like he triggers Hopper to like, you know, go ahead and shoot Vecna, but like shoots sensory deprivation tank and everything happens. It just makes sense that like, oh man, did he like actually harm 11 because of Vecna? So when that happens and all that, you know, stuff happens, Callie sees Hopper as a danger to the three of them, because like Hopper could like get in the way of them like destroying Vecna again. And even though that, and Callie's like, we can't have like personal ties like this, because this is like the end of the world here right now. We can't just have this like whole like relationship, you know, things that are holding, like having Hopper holding 11 back. That's what Callie thinks, that Hopper is going to hold 11 back to the point that they're going to lose against Vecna. So he holds Hopper at gunpoint, just like, you know, like trying to like, and stuff like that. And Hopper's like, wait. And then like he shares another vulnerable moment with 11. And like, he says some things that really reached Callie as well. It's, you know, and Callie ate and stuff, the whole Lost Sister episode. I thought she was going to be a one-off character, and I was honestly surprised they brought her back in such a way. But anyways, she's not a main character. I'm just, you know, kind of mentioning that real quick. And then like something that Hopper said, I don't know exactly what, like made Callie change her mind about that. Very powerful moment between the three of them, which was really interesting to see. And, you know, even through the point when Callie, you know, she died and like she saved 11, and 11's now like away from, you know, the military and stuff. That was also a really cool moment about her character too. But Hopper in season 5, I mean, he had a lot of realistic emotions. And like in the epilogue, when he shared one final moment with Mike and talking about like moving on and stuff like that, because Hopper was forced to move on from his first daughter, you know, dying like that, and like losing 11 in such a way that he did. He had to realize that he had to stay strong for people that 11 cared about, and that he cared about, like people he cared about, and like the people that 11 cared about. Hopper knew he had to stay strong for them, even though he lost so much already and had to lose 11 on top of all that. He had to stay strong. So he kind of shared the moment talking to Mike about that, like the people that 11 cared about, she would have wanted Mike to move on and stuff like that. And that was a really cool moment to have. So all that stuff makes Hopper, even through season 5 and like not having as many moments as he should have had, still, I mean, probably consistently the best character. Because, you know, Steve started out as a kind of a jerk, but at the very end of season 1, he became a great character. And then like he became a better character as we went on. Dustin, he started off a bit slow as well, you know, being kind of like a typical like bully, like smart kid, but gets bullied trope. And then like the rest of the show, he gets better and better. But like Hopper started out incredible from the very start and stayed incredible to the end of the show, for sure. Anyways, enough ranting about Jim Hopper, but he's my favorite character. Oh, him and Steve are kind of close. Steve, Hopper, and Dustin, really. But, like, Hopper's, like, probably in terms of consistency, the best character. But, like, Steve's kind of, like, you know, kind of my... whatever. Anyway, so, after Hopper, let's see, because we're going in alphabetical order. We got some characters I'm not going to spend as long, just because, like, they didn't have as much importance. But let's talk a little bit about Dr. K. Okay, so, she is the, kind of like, the successor to Dr. Brenner. Obviously, she's nowhere near as, like, cool of a character as, well, not cool, but like as important or like character writing strong stuff as like Dr. Brenner, because she wasn't really supposed to be like that. She was just supposed to be your typical military person that's going to go the extra mile to get their way, you know, like, and this isn't exactly military, but like connects to the military a little bit, the corrupt part of the military or whatever. Same thing with that Dr. Brenner had, same position. But the things she did were way worse than what Dr. Brenner did, because Dr. Brenner, obviously he was like, you know, he was still abusing the kids and stuff, but he was trying to unlock their powers at the very end. Dr. K was just genuinely trying to like take over like things using the kids' powers, not really giving much thought about what the kids were going through. You know, like making more of them the way that she did, and then Callie's like realization of what was happening. I mean, that was like a really dark moment to have in season 5, and they didn't really touch up on that part again. But Dr. K, she went even further than Dr. Brenner did, which is kind of crazy. And I mean, like the character, the actress who played her, really good performance that she put on, but like character writing wasn't as strong as Dr. Brenner was, of course. But she had some moments that she delivered some really cool lines. The way that she delivered those lines were really cool. But she was only a season 5 character, so obviously not one of the best characters, but not bad either, for sure. Like, she had some moments, and that kind of surprised me, like that the way she acted, and she was like not taking anybody's crap and stuff like that. Pretty cool, interesting, interesting way, but obviously not that big of a character at all. But she's still listed as a main character, so I'm still gonna talk about her. But yeah, okay. Anyways, moving on. Max Mayfield. Now here we go. So Max, like, at first, I was like, okay, so is she kind of going to be like a Billy character that isn't going to make it to the rest of the show? And then she honestly surprised me. From the start, she started out as like the trope of like that rebellious kid and stuff. Probably had like a bad home life, which she did and stuff. So season 2, kind of predictable character. Season 3, though, like we're starting to see something. I feel like that it took until season 4 when we really saw her character progress to the point that it did. But season 3, she got better as a character, moving on. And then season 4, whenever she was being possessed by Vecna, and like that moment that she had where she had a nightmare of Billy and stuff like that, or not nightmare, but like when she was being possessed by Vecna and she had to like stop Vecna. She was one of the main characters that helped stop Vecna, because they decided to capitalize on her being possessed and stuff like that, and stopping Vecna, and at least harming him to the point that he would die off for the moment. I mean, he's not going to completely die, of course, but like he's going to be stopped. At the end of season 4, which the piggyback episode, I mean, in terms of action, like really good stuff, really good writing and whatnot. But Max, like, she kind of like went against the crowd, like in the way that she usually does as her character, but channels that towards stopping Vecna for the moment. The whole plot plan that we had set up, so many things were set up in the piggyback that was a really cool like battle plan that I wish that they would have had something like that in season 5 instead of just being kind of predictable. But season 4 had so many like twists and turns that I was like, you know what? That's actually pretty good stuff. But yeah, I'm just saying that like season 4 is when she really had her moment to shine, and they really did have like good writing for that. Her relationship with Lucas makes sense, and whatnot. But like the whole like running up the hill montage where she's escaping from Vecna's mind that first time, that was some cinema right there. I'm surprised that like season 5's budget was $400 million, but somehow it looked way worse than season 4. And I don't know why. Like season 4 had a lower budget, but the visuals were so much better, especially in that scene where she's escaping from Vecna. Really had us on our toes really for that scene. I was like, whoa, like that scene was like pretty intense. But escaping from Vecna's mind the first time, then it's revealed that she has to go back, and she eventually ends up deciding to do that after all that she had to go through the first time. And the second time, she gets almost hurt to the point that I thought she was going to die in season 5. She was trying to escape from Vecna's mind. She finally gets out, and Lucas, man, the moment when he realized that Max may very well die and stuff like that, and Lucas is like, that emotion that he shows, that sheer emotion he has, is like heart-wrenching, honestly. I mean, like it's pretty intense. That moment, it's a bitter like sadness that he feels towards Max, and it's like a genuinely sad moment in that episode. But revealing that she comes back from all that, and she has moments where it's pretty cool. But season 5, they kind of like character, as the season 5 went on, kind of got less and less, like it kind of got weak. Not her as a like person, but the character writing. I don't know what they did I don't know what they were thinking, but you know what happened with like the whole Holly side plot. It just kind of got worse and worse as we like talking for 10 minutes about Holly, you can do this and stuff. Like, you're just genuinely like making filler up for that episode. Like, come on, guys, speed it up. Like, just they're like talking like it's a podcast, because like the first time she tried to escape Vecna in season 5, she wasted no time to run. Like, she had like a moment where she's like, oh my gosh, she can escape, but like she just like bolted, and stuff. Like, same thing like season 4, it's kind of similar to like season 4, except all of a sudden the visuals were dumb. I don't know why, because like budget was really high, guys, come on. But she was trying to escape, but then Vecna was able to catch up to her and stop her. But then because he was further away to chase when Max was trying to escape. Vecna was further away, but somehow he caught up to her in time. But somehow, some way, whenever she was spending all this time talking back and forth with Holly, they were still able to get out of there, and Vecna was already on their tail in that moment. That's like a plot hole that makes absolutely no sense. That Vecna is like way closer to them because he was literally on their tail, like they're on, like chasing them in that moment. But they spend so much time talking about like, you can do this, Holly. Like, just leaves her high and dry like that. But then she eventually foolishly decides to run after all that talking. It just makes absolutely no sense. But season 2, she's kind of like a typical character. Season 3, she establishes that she's set apart from other characters. And then season 4, she really is a character that hits different. But season 5, she kind of like gets a little worse and worse as the season gets on. A little bit more predictable, a little more typical, going back to kind of like how she was in season 2. I mean, it's whatever. But yeah, so Max, great character for season 3 and especially season 4 for sure. Okay. Well, now let's talk about Eddie. So season 4, another season 4 exclusive. I think this character, more than Argyle, I was like, okay, there might be some reason why he only shows up for this season, because it just kind of makes sense because we're so late in the show that like either you're going to be a season 4 character or you're going to make it to the very end. You're not going to like, because I feel like there's no in between. If you're introduced in season 4, you're either going to be like, you're going to stick to the end or you're going to not see season 5. Like I feel like there was an in between on that. But yeah, Eddie. Yeah, I like his character for the way it is. He had some cringe moments, but the thing that made sense about his whole plot was the Hellfire Club and the D&D the satanic panic that was happening in the 80s about D&D. That made so much sense. I feel like that it's kind of, I wouldn't say it's underrated, but I feel like it's underappreciated how much sense they made about that whole satanic panic, that thing that was happening in the 80s, and made that a big point of season 4 about like all the parents and people were like realizing that, oh, maybe D&D's like not, maybe D&D's evil, it's got like Satan stuff in it, like typical like snowflake behavior. But I don't mean to say it like that, but I'm saying that like people were getting like sensitive about like the whole area of stuff when D&D is far from satanic. It just has typical magical stuff that you're just like all of a sudden making satanic because like you're just going with the bandwagon and the crowd and like you're just I don't know. But Eddie was like one of those characters that just made sense that like people are going to start thinking that he was like a satanic dude, because he's like a front runner of the Hellfire Club and whatnot. And having the name the Hellfire Club, obviously is going to, stir up some trouble with the whole satanic panic happening, And his character, being like, he and Dustin got really close, and I think that made sense too. And the way that, he went out and stuff, he went out in like the most typical Eddie way I think he could write, playing, unfortunately. Now, well, before it was cool when he played Master of Puppets, but then Master of Puppets got played out of proportion, and then that song became so annoying for me because like everybody was glazing that song, because like before I really liked Master of Puppets, but then it was like, oh my gosh, greatest metal song of all time, and no other song comes close. Like, shut up, like really, like I don't mean to like pry about like everybody's like emotions and like like their what they think about stuff and whatnot, but if you think for a second that Master of Puppets is Metallica's best song, you best re-listen to their discography, or at least listen to them for the first time, because I believe that if you think that that's their best song and you don't think that any other metal song comes close, I believe you only listen to that song and maybe Enter Sandman or Nothing Else Matters, but you haven't listened to their full discography. You have to listen to them first to understand. Anyways, back to talking about Eddie. It was cool seeing him play that guitar solo. It was cool having that moment and stuff like that. He went out in a metal way, he's playing that, metal fan, he's a D&D guy, all that stuff. But the way that he was like seen as an outcast and like all these like adults were holding pitchforks and stuff like that. Well, let's get rid of the satanic stuff, burn the witch, stuff like that. But that made so much sense, the way that all the adults were like, kind of like realizing, oh man, there's all this satanic stuff happening. We got to stop it, and they don't understand the full picture of the story. And like Eddie's like outcastness was so unfair to him. That made so much sense in terms of character writing. And then at the very end, he redeemed himself. But like the way, and he died, like he passed on, like he died, but like nobody was respecting his death. And even through season 5, there's people vandalizing his gravestone and stuff like that. So many things that are happening. And Dustin was the only one left to like carry on his legacy, but he was still getting bullied again. Kind of like, in season 1, he was getting bullied again, like physically bullied too. And he was just left there to like take all of it because he couldn't let Eddie's legacy go to waste, but nobody else was respecting him. And, he was kind of like an emotionally vulnerable state. The whole legacy of Eddie just makes sense, even after like his death, kind of in the same way that Billy does, not in like a cool way. Well, Billy's death, like whole like post-mortem stuff, like being an important character in season 4, not as cool, but like it made sense. This made sense. And it was cool because Eddie like made a statement as a character, as a one-off character, the performance that was put on, it was great, but like his character arc, like his character stuff after death still made sense too, and I think that's really cool as a character to have. So I do like Eddie's character, maybe not to the point that some other people might like him, and I don't hate his character either, like people hate him. Like I still like his character, just maybe not, I don't, think it's absolutely perfect because, it's only one season, so he didn't have like the whole show to like shine, but interesting character for sure. Okay, well, let's talk about a character that his death makes me super mad. Bob Newby, the kind of love interest with Joyce in season two, right? Oh my gosh, I keep mixing up season 2 and 3. Season 2, I think. Please be right. Okay, whatever. So Sean Astin, we know him from The Lord of the Rings and The Goonies, if you're, Sean Astin super fan. Well, actually, it's not that. If you know who plays, okay, whatever. He plays that one kid in The Goonies. I forgot his name. Could have been, literally could have been named Mike. I don't even know. Michael. I don't know. I really don't know his character. But, he's Sean Astin's well known from The Lord of the Rings, and he got brought in for Stranger Things. And I think that was super cool to have a character like that, because it's like one of the first characters to be brought in as a one-off character that leaves his death was sad and stuff like that and whatnot. But man, he got done dirty so bad because he's just one of those characters that the whole supernatural stuff has happened once before and it got brought back, and Bob's just so confused on that kind of stuff. He doesn't understand that this stuff is serious, and he thinks that Joyce, Joyce kind of getting emotional about things. And he thinks that the things that are happening to Joyce are just from real world scenarios that are making her a bit crazed and stuff. So he kind of has to deal with that. On top of actually these things are really happening, all this sci-fi stuff's happening. So he has to figure that out and has to start believing that all this supernatural stuff is real. I mean, that's a lot to take in, for his character. And then the way that he dies is so stupid. He could have easily escaped, but he gets struck with shock. He stands still as a statue. I don't think that sort of stuff is going to happen. If you see something chasing you, you're going to run. You don't just stand there. And then he dies. Guys, could we have made it I know that he had to die for that sort of character development for Joyce to happen. I knew that he was going to die in that season, that was just going to happen. But guys, could have made it a thing he was getting chased down and stuff, and he had to sacrifice himself so that everybody else could escape. No, his death was him standing there, and he could have escaped like everybody else, but he just died like that. Gosh, guys, seriously, this makes me mad. Duffer Brothers, seriously, what were you doing? I'm sorry, but this character, you done him so dirty because you can't disrespect Sean Astin, and you just did. Come on, guys. Bob Newby was a great guy and stuff, and we knew that he wasn't gonna stay for a while in the show. He was just gonna be a one-off character because knowing characters that get introduced the way he did, it was gonna make sense that he didn't live on. But man, that was such a dumb death for such a cool character for one season character. So I really like his character, but man, that death was so dumb. But yeah, cool dude, for sure. Because he's Samwise Gamgee. You can't go wrong with Samwise Gamgee, right? Okay. So moving on. Sam Owens. So this guy, I was kind of confused. I couldn't remember. Did he die or something? He didn't show up again. He was there for season 4, and then he just kind of disappeared. But was he there for other seasons? I don't know. But he's kind of like Dr. Brenner's not apprentice, but he's there to working in the same field as him. But he cares more about what Eleven's well-being than Dr. Brenner did, and he shows signs of feeling bad for her and stuff like that in such a way that I don't see him as an evil person, obviously. No, I don't think anybody does. He was working in the same organization as Dr. Brenner and evil people, but he wasn't an evil person necessarily. He was just put into this kind of scenario where he was seen as a bad dude, but he was helping people along the way. No, he was in seasons 2 or 3, wasn't he? He was kind of the therapist dude that was helping Will and stuff like that. He had moments where he was genuinely helping out everybody really a lot. And then in season 4, when he was with Dr. Brenner and stuff, he was helping Eleven as well because Dr. Brenner was the only person that knew that he had to push Eleven beyond her limits and stuff. But Dr. Owens, he wasn't necessarily holding Eleven back, but he was helping to make sure that she wasn't losing herself along the way. And then once it was revealed that okay, Dr. Brenner, he was the only dude that was able to get Eleven's powers back, so we had to put trust in him on that. But Dr. Owens, it was hard for him to accept that, so he wasn't holding Eleven back or anything, but it made sense that Eleven just couldn't get her powers back like that. There were other characters that were genuinely okay, but Dr. Brenner, Eleven might die because of this stuff that you're putting her through. So genuine reaction, a genuine reasonable reaction that he had towards that kind of stuff. But eventually we knew that Dr. Brenner was the only guy that was going to bring Eleven back, her powers back and stuff. So Dr. Owens, a great dude to have, especially in season 4. But seasons 2 and 3, I think that's when he was introduced, I guess, because of Will, because he was that guy helping Will out, I think. Could be wrong, but I think that was the dude. But genuinely a good guy, a good character to have, but I don't remember why isn't he in season 5? I can't remember. I honestly can't, but it's interesting character for sure. Okay, moving on. Okay, we got the Sinclair. So Erica Sinclair, we're going to talk about her first. I've got back and forth feelings about this character, like how this character writing works. So I get the whole sassy attitude for like season 3 and stuff and whatnot, but it just doesn't exactly work every time because she genuinely is just a jerk. And she gets away with it because she's young and stuff like that. And like she doesn't know any better and stuff like that. But as the show gets on, man, she's just really mean. You know, I mean, like season 5, she's fine because like, well, the whole Vecna plot's happening. So there's not many scenes with her just genuinely being a jerk to everybody. It's more just her sassy attitude that kind of comes back to season 3. But season 4, gosh, bro, like Erica is like a really hard character to like just watch on screen because like you got so many moments where she's just a jerk to people and stuff like that. Season 3 it made sense because she's like younger and stuff like that, and annoying for like annoying is all get out. But like since she wasn't like there wasn't that time skip yet, and she's just like a younger kid, it made sense, I guess, you know, just being like that. But season 4 she was really just a jerk, and then season 5. With the whole Vecna plot happening, there wasn't as many moments of her being a jerk, more so as actually helping the group out. Still having that sassy, annoying attitude, but like at least it made more sense. But season 4, jeez. And was she introduced in season 2? I don't know. I can't remember. But gosh, man, like super annoying to see sometimes on screen. Anyway, so Erica kind of back and forth for sure. Kind of like a fall off, you know, like started off, you know, okay, had a big fall off and then came back for season 5, but never really like an incredible character because just moments where she was just mean for no reason. After that we have Lucas, and Lucas is different, obviously, you know, being a genuine guy. You know, Lucas, he had a really good character arc in season 4. And I say this with like full-heartedly, had a really good character arc. So like, you know, season 1, you know, he's kind of there as like like Dustin, you know, he had like I don't know how to explain that. Like his character like's hard to like pinpoint in like the earlier seasons about what his significance is because he's kind of there, you know. When Max gets introduced and like their whole relationship kind of builds, he gets more and more important as a character. And obviously he's there to help out the group and stuff. Like he keeps them together at some points, you know. And he's there and he knows like war stuff and whatnot. He knows all this battle, you know, he has his battle knowledge and whatnot. But like nothing too compelling yet until season 4. Season 4 is when we see the real side of this kind of stuff. So, you know, the characters get older. They're starting high school, you know, and he's kind of pressured into certain things. And he gets into a basketball group, you know. He's on the basketball team. And in that team, he kind of like distances himself from the D&D group. His relationship with Max isn't quite the same. You know, it's kind of like it kind of died off. But it gets back, of course, in season 4. But like, you know, kind of dies off in such a way that makes sense because like he's kind of like getting into like that popular group kind of thing. He's getting pressure into so many things. I mean, he's like with the group and they start drinking and stuff, you know, he gets hungover and like regrets this decision and stuff. So many things that happen that just like makes sense for somebody to kind of who's in a vulnerable state, you know, starting high school, he doesn't really know what to do with his life and he kind of gets pressured into all these things. And then he has to like escape from the basketball group whenever like, you know, they're hunting down Eddie and stuff. So he comes back to the group, you know, obviously takes a minute for them to accept, you know, like, oh, Lucas is back, right? Because he kind of left them high and dry starting, you know, freshman year. But he comes back in such a way that makes really, really good sense for his character writing. So season 4, really, really good character. Season 5, though, kind of just becomes like, whatever again, you know. Seasons 2 and 3 is fine. Season 1 he's all right, you know, like he's all right throughout the first 3 seasons, but season 4 is where he really has his moment to shine, for sure. But season 5, not really as much. So, but Lucas, great character for sure. It's just like season 4 is really what we remember him best about his character and being a really good character, but doesn't really carry over to season 5 like a lot of characters that peak in season 4. Season 5 kind of like dies off a little bit for their characters because they don't spend enough time on character arcs and more so just spend time on the main plot, which is fine. But that kind of like brings down some characters, you know, that's kind of how it works with, you know, unbalancing times with that. Okay, anyways. Okay, so we have a season 5 character here. We have a couple more about just season 5 where they really have their moments to shine. Derek Turnbow. Delightful Derek. We're going to talk about Delightful Derek. I mean, we know the other Derek, but Derek, you know, like from the very start, we were like, oh, this kid's getting slimed in like the first couple of episodes. Like, he is so dead, you know? And then all of a sudden, he's like genuinely like a cool dude. I mean, like, you know, he's like kind of gross and stuff. You know, he's a mess. I mean, like, I don't know, he's a dirty minded kid. I mean, like, he's that kind of kid, you know? It's like, it makes sense, obviously, because that's just kind of how his character is and whatnot, and it makes sense. But at the very start, we're just like, who the heck is this guy? And like, why is he part of the show now? Like, he's going to totally die in the first couple episodes. No, he made it to the very end, and he genuinely had like moments to shine in the show, which were really interesting to have, you know? I mean, he like full on soloed Vecna, and like multiple moments he like disrespected him too, did things that I don't think any other character would have the cojones to do that Derek did. It's just really funny, and like halfway through the show when Erica had to infiltrate the Turnbows and get them all to sleep because like they were going to be attacked next and stuff like that, and he had to save and like that whole thing with Erica, that was probably like the best one that she had, like taking them down in the way that she did. But then Derek, he wakes up and then has a pretty reasonable crash out of like, we're being kidnapped, oh my gosh, like has to escape. So it took him a while to understand what was going on, because like how the heck are you gonna like understand what's going on whenever you're introduced and being kidnapped and like all tied up and stuff like that? Like how do you expect to like understand that? So a very real moment with him too. But like once he's in like the dream state in Vecna's dreams, he helps save the kids and stuff. He again solos Vecna in that one moment in the caves. Multiple moments that he like has his time to shine. So at the very end, we all love Derek in that regard. Like a really good character development in like a vast sea of characters not getting enough screen time. Derek got enough screen time for us to like change our minds completely about his character, which is cool. So it's kind of like a one-off character sort of thing, like kind of like Bob Newby. Like he like starts like, well, I don't really understand, and then like at the very end it's like, oh yeah, but then Derek, like even more so, like at the very start we're like, oh, this kid's like gonna die super soon, and then like boom, he's back, Absolute Cinema, or he's there, Absolute Cinema. So yeah, Derek, great guy. After that we have the one, the only Vecna, Henry Creel, Henry Creel, or one, whatever you want to call him, the dude. This guy, I'm sure this actor took a lot of influences from Pennywise. I don't know if we're talking about Tim Curry here or the Skarsgård guy. What was his name? Gosh, okay, whatever. I don't know what influence he took, but I think he took some influences from either Pennywise, because there were moments like they're in the way that he haunted kids and stuff. It just kind of was similar and stuff. That's not what I'm talking about. His character arc was introduced in one of the coolest ways I could possibly think of for the show. I don't think they could have done it any better. And of course that being in the Massacre at Hawkins Lab, or is it called that? The Hawkins Lab Massacre, whatever. That whole episode with the backstory of Eleven and stuff like that, and introducing his character. So we didn't know anything except for the fact that he was one of the workers there at the start. He kind of like gets to know Eleven, and he kind of tells her that this system of like unlocking your powers is not what you're thinking of, and like eventually he gets her to escape, and that's because he wants to escape as well, because he can't escape. He reveals he's one of the people there too. He's number one, and he tries to get Eleven to escape and stuff like that. But in that moment, she sees what his plan really is, and eventually, like, okay, well, let's talk. I'm not going to talk into detail about this because I don't want this video to get taken down. But it's very, very brutal what he does. Very vile. I mean, it's like, whoa, we kind of went far, not too far. I mean, obviously, like, how do you go too far in a TV-14 show like this? But man, this episode really like got to the boundary. So once Eleven like realized his plan, he decided to just go full massacre mode. Hence the name of the episode, and killed everybody there. And when I mean everybody, I mean everybody. You saw what you saw, and that whole that kind of was like. We kind of saw a preview of that at the opening of season 4, which is probably one of the best openings in terms of like pre-credits, like very scary stuff. But like that episode kind of reveals the whole episode of that, and that makes so much sense. Like we were awaiting for an episode like that in season 4, and when we finally got it, it was Absolute Cinema. But what I'm saying is that like what he did was so crazy, and we didn't see anything of the likes of that in the show before. Super dark, super scary, super violent. Just craziness. Like I didn't think they were going to go that far in the show, but that whole like intensity was built up the entire episode for that one final moment where they have that battle, and then she banishes him because she's overpowered. I mean, like her powers like super, like before she lost her powers, I generally believe her powers were like super unstable to the point she could have been the strongest person in like the universe. We don't even know how strong her powers would have been if she kept them instead of like losing them. She had to get them back because they were kind of like stabilized in season 5, because like before it was like really unstable powers that she had. I mean, we saw it, but like what she did to Vecna and banished him to the depths of his own mind to create like the Upside Down and whatnot, or I can't remember what it is, but that whole conflict, that was incredible writing throughout that episode. But there's other things too, introducing his childhood, and like he was the one responsible for the death of his family, and like his dad and what happened to his dad, everything. And like it's cool that by the end of the show, I was genuinely worried that they were going to do like a stupid, like the Kylo Ren situation. I'm not going to explain any more on that, but if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. Just turning a character that should have just stayed evil into a good guy by the end. Like, what were we doing? Like that. I'm not saying that did not happen. I'm glad they didn't do that. I mean, there could have been better ways to write Vecna in season 5. Like, I still think Vecna in season 4 was way more menacing, although the character design for season 5, really good stuff. I mean, that great improvement, but I'm just saying, like, it wasn't as wasn't as menacing as season 4, just because, like, we already saw like the height of the menacing conflict in season 4 after that episode. But still, season 5 had its moments for sure with the whole kidnapping kids and stuff. But because, like, parallels to season 1, the kids are vanishing again. But, like, man, I don't know, like, just wasn't the same in season 4. But I'm glad that he stayed evil, like, because that would be so stupid, like, after everything that happened, like, as a redemption arc. Because you're gonna have a redemption arc, or, like, not redemption, but, like, at the very end, like, Vecna's last moments were actually saving everybody and stuff like that. You had to introduce that a lot earlier. You had to introduce, like, the change of heart, like, even in season 4 a little bit. Like, that's how early on it would have to be for it to make sense. So I'm glad they kept him evil and stuff. It's predictable, sure, the way he died and stuff like that. But it's cool that how he, like, really dies, like the head getting chopped off by Joyce. Like, like, that was, like, a moment for Joyce, like, like, while her, like, her brutal, like, the mom of all moms stuff kind of died off. She kind of came back for that moment in season 5, like, after all the pain and suffering everybody had to go through. Joyce is the one to, like, behead him and stuff. Like, that was cool. But, like, still, things were predictable for Vecna's demise. Like, it's fine, that's just how it happens. But I'm glad they kept him evil, they kept things making sense and whatnot. But yeah, Vecna in season 4, good character writing, very good character writing, and especially in the backstories, for sure. Okay, well, we're in the last group of letters, and we're on the Wheelers now, so let's talk about hold on. Where's Welcome Down, Ted? It's not on this list. I'm very disappointed in the person who made this list. Oh, wait, that's me. Well, not really, but I just kind of copy-pasted things. But, like, I was the one that copy-pasted this, so it was my fault. Okay, before we talk about any other characters, we got to talk about Welcome Down, Ted. If you know what I'm talking about, Welcome Down, Ted Wheeler, the greatest character that ever lived. Oh, my gosh, bro. Okay, so this guy is the embodiment of the dad. Like, we have Joyce is the mom, but Ted is the dad. I mean, like, because he is just genuinely, like, the most realistic dude. I mean, he has multiple moments of, like, just absolute sarcasm towards things, but he also just, like, throughout, like, every waking moment that he can, he's just, like, there, just, like, diffuse, like, it's just, like, there's situations going on, and, like, Ted's just there to be, like, he just genuinely doesn't, like, he doesn't have that typical, like, he's just kind of, like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, he's not interested in what's going on with all this supernatural stuff. He thinks it's silly. He doesn't think it's I think it's all make-believe and stuff like that. But Ted, holy crap, in season 5, like, after all this, like, sarcasm stuff and just genuinely having, like, funny one-off lines, but, like, having nothing more than just being, like, like, an unimportant, like, middle-aged dad, just there, like, living in the 80s and stuff. He just has that one defining moment. It's like, when the Vanishing of Holly Wheeler episode happened, I do like the episode. Not everything was perfect about it, but when Holly Wheeler is vanishing and stuff, and, like, we'll talk about Karen Wheeler in a second, but Ted, like, just going one-on-one with that Demogorgon, that was cool. And I thought that Ted and Karen were literally going to die in that episode. I thought we were going to have another dark moment. I thought this was going to be another, like, Massacre at Hawkins Lab kind of thing. Surprised that it didn't happen. Honestly, I thought they were they're gonna pass on, but I'm glad Karen and Ted survived, because Karen had more redeemable, like, Karen, not redeemable, but Karen had some cool moments. Ted not so much, because, like, well, they kind of just left him high and dry, and, like, they could have talked to Ted, when they were coming to, like, like the hospital, because Ted, I don't think his, like, throat was slashed or anything, so he probably could have talked more than Karen, but just kind of, like, left him high and dry. But Ted and Karen, after that, like, fight and stuff, he was just having, like, he was hitting, golf balls and stuff. He brings his golf club and, like, absolutely clobbers the heck out of the Demogorgon. Obviously, he didn't win against it, but, like, it was so cool that Ted and Karen did what they did to protect Holly after all these, like, seasons of them just not being, like, involved in stuff, and, like, all of a sudden they became involved. That was awesome. Like, that they had those moments, and I'm glad they wrote that character stuff in for them. But Welcome Down, Ted, man. Oh, man. Anyway, so I just wanted to mention that briefly. So, and like, on top of that, let's talk about Welcome Down Karen, or I can't remember what we call her. what was it? Kill 'em all, Karen? I can't remember what it was. Her moments were even cooler, I will say, but it was cooler, like in a sense, it was cooler for Ted because like throughout the show, he generally had like nothing to do with anything, and then all of a sudden became like such an awesome character. So I think that like contrast between the first 4 seasons and season 5 in terms of his importance was cooler than Karen's, because Karen had a couple of moments where she actually was like involved with the kids' well-beings and stuff. Like, I mean, she didn't understand what was going on, obviously, but like she had moments, of course, because that's just how it worked out. But when she was defending Holly, protecting her from the Demogorgon, that was also really cool with like the wine bottle and stuff. And like her death was, or not death, but her almost death was even more like it was sad, really sad. Because like, Ted was thrown against like a wall or something, he was done for the moment. But Karen, she was like torn up right in front of Holly and stuff. And like, that was like her trauma, like, cause all the other characters have gone through trauma and stuff, but Holly hadn't gone through trauma yet. And like, she didn't know what was going on with Mr. What's It and everything, she didn't know what was happening, but getting introduced to that by seeing like, to her, she thought that both her parents had just died in that moment, like, cause like it looked like it, so geez, the things that happen are like crazy stuff. But Karen, cool character too in season 5, Karen and Ted, man, great stuff. Walk them down wheelers. Anyways, moving on. But yeah, I just want to mention that those two parents actually had some importance later on, very late in the show, but cool moments. Yeah. Anyways, moving on to Holly, and we'll talk about the Wheelers to end this off. I guess we'll go Holly, Mike, Nancy. I don't know. Kind of going like what I have more to talk about, I guess, because that's just how it works out. But Holly, okay, so she's kind of like a plot hole of a character because she's supposed to be 7, right? And she looks like she's 14. Like, I know that they had to find an actor that was old enough to like genuinely act out the way that they needed her to act. But guys, I think that we could we have had a time skip or something, because her character just didn't make sense. Like, I mean, she had moments, where she was cool and stuff, but I still was wondering throughout the entire show how she could be like 7 years old, because like there wasn't that big of a time skip, I feel like that for season 5, they would have went like a doomsday plot instead of like continuing like the same typical thing that the first 4 seasons of Stranger Things had. And like they changed season 5 to be way different than the rest of the seasons. We could have had a way more compelling story conclusion. That's my opinion. I know that some people don't agree with that, but if the apocalypse could happen, like the entire world was now in danger, and well, it was in danger, but like all the conflict stuff was still only happening in Hawkins, which was kind of weak to end off the show for me. It's not bad, but I feel like if the entire world was now in turmoil and stuff like that, like if like the whole world, everything was happening to it instead of just Hawkins, I feel like that could have been cooler. But I know that's just not how it worked out. But like a whole doomsday thing would have been cooler. But I'm not trying to say that. But like things like Holly's character, just it didn't make sense because there wasn't big of a time skip. So she's supposed to be younger than this. Like she had some very like more mature actions that and like feelings that she had towards things and stuff like that. It was cool for sure, but like I just kind of like the plot holes just didn't make sense. But, her dream sequences with Max were cool at the very start, kind of got dragged out by the end, but it was cool to see for sure. But not really much to talk about her because she didn't have like much of a moment. Like, because throughout the show, she was like a whiny character and something. Like she was always like crying about something. And then all of a sudden, season 5, she's like, important character. Look at this, But yeah. So I don't know, like it's cool that she had her moments, but like just didn't make sense, obviously, because there wasn't enough big of a time skip to like make sense for a character to be the way she was. So kind of back and forth, mixed feelings about it, but it's okay. Whatever. Okay, moving on. Mike. Okay, so supposed to be the main character of the show. Cannot get over that hair until season 5. That was the stupidest haircut you could possibly have. I know that some people may not agree, but I think a lot of people can agree that Finn Wolfhard's hair throughout like the first 4 seasons of the show, I feel like we were staring at that hair most of the time because it was always dumb in some sort of fashion that we just couldn't get over. Like I know Jonathan and Willie had dumb bowl cuts, but they're just bowl cuts. I mean, they're ugly as frick, but like at least they weren't just wild hair, because like you can kind of see that like, well, the buyers are kind of poor, so maybe they couldn't afford a haircut, right? So that kind of makes sense, right? So whatever. And it was dumb. It was obviously like simple, dumb, whatever haircuts, but they kind of make sense for the characters, it just makes sense. But oh my gosh, Mike though, his haircut, bro, like what were we doing? Season 5 though, his hair was fine. So I was actually able to enjoy his character, but I couldn't get over his hair for like half the time he was on screen. But he's your typical like main character-ish of Stranger Things. I don't know. You can kind of argue back and forth who really is the main character of the show, but I mean, he's like he's the main character of the main group of the show. So it kind of makes sense. But, his personality is kind of, like typical, like it's predictable. What he does is predictable. But I think it's cool that they kept that up in such a way that wasn't annoying or repetitive. Like they changed his character enough to the point that he was still, he was still a good enough character to have. He wasn't just like a typical boring protagonist dude of the show. But they changed it enough to the point that it wasn't exasperating to see his character on screen. Like you can still like his character even if it's not the most different, built different. Like it's still pretty typical of a character to have, but not boring or bland. If that makes sense. But there's still not a lot going on with this character throughout the show to the point that he becomes the best character, but he's still a solid character throughout. Like nothing too shaky about his character. Maybe his hair, but not his character personality. It just makes sense, throughout the entire show. Predictable, typical, protagonist, fits in with all the tropes, but I still think that's good to have a character like that. If we have so many characters that are going to break all the tropes, if we have one character that sticks with the same trope throughout the entire show, but changes it enough to not be too boring or anything, I think that makes sense. Anyway, so that's Mike's character. That's kind of what I feel about his character. Definitely above average just because that he's consistent enough, but not like the best. So anyways, finally, let's talk about Nancy Wheeler, who is rumored to have a spin-off show made about her. And I don't know if that's true, but that's something that I've heard recently. So Nancy, right? I've got some hot takes about her character. I don't know how hot of the takes they're going to be, because I know that there's some people that may agree with me, some people that disagree with me, but I have to say this. Nancy's character is really hard to understand or to like as a character, because let's walk through some things. So her relationship with Steve, we kind of knew it was going to end at some point, because Steve was that kind of dude at the start of the show, kind of like a dirtbag and whatnot. And Nancy, she was she's supposed to be the perfect student and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden they're just oh yeah, let's just be irresponsible, So she's going over to Steve's house, and his parents are not home. It's not like a big party or anything. It's just her, Steve, Barb, and rest in peace, Barb. She was done. She was done dirty. We all know that, but and never seen of again. And then what else? The other character, not other character, but there's another dude there, and maybe two. Okay, there, Steve and a couple more of his friends. That was 5 or 6 of them. I can't remember. But Nancy made a irresponsible decision. I'm not going to get into it, but it's your typical teenage romance thing. You know what I'm talking about. And Barb was there to be a voice of reason for her. Then Nancy just flat out ignores Barb, and then just I can do whatever heck I want, because I was I'm the perfect girl. Now I can do one imperfect thing and it'll be okay. And then she gets into a string of things I just can't really say is redeemable about her. So after that irresponsible thing with Steve, she becomes kind of a jerk towards, so she's supposed to be in a relationship with Steve, right? And if you're going to start having feelings for Jonathan, at least tell Steve that you're no longer interested in a relationship. No, she starts going back and forth between Steve and Jonathan. It's like a love triangle, but she's the only one that's being the bad one in that triangle, because Steve's just trying to keep a relationship going, because he's genuinely wanting a healthy relationship with Nancy, but he's struggling because he's lived all of his life as a stuck-up dude, right? He's that typical jock guy, at the very start of the show. But towards the end of season 1, he has a change of heart. But Nancy doesn't acknowledge that, and she just flat out leaves him for Jonathan, which Jonathan isn't a perfect guy either. I mean, he's trying to find Will, and he's compelled to do that, but he's got a couple of moments taking the pictures of them, that stuff, and he doesn't have those. And he comes off as kind of a creepy dude at the start of the show, but that's kind of his character. But Nancy all of a sudden having the feeling for Jonathan, it just makes no sense. I mean, not for character writings, but for her as a character, and after all the perfect things that she's done, being a genuinely smart person, and being all responsible, but then she gets to a string of irresponsible stuff that kind of condemns her character more and more as we go on. In season 2, she's still kind of a jerk to both of them. I mean, she's in a relationship with Jonathan now, I think at that point, but still kind of a jerk to both of them throughout seasons 2 and 3. And in season 4, whenever all her personality is that she is good with weapons and stuff like that. That's really her personality, right? And she keeps up that I don't know, that personality and stuff like that. Because Jonathan's now in California, and she doesn't want anything to do with Steve, and she just kind of there as just a character to just be this is journalist stuff. I'm gonna find out all this Vecna stuff, but. Seriously, man, you can't just treat Steve like that after all this redeemable stuff that he's done, and you're just gonna still act like that towards him. Not just him, but other people too, genuinely. She's just living in her own mind or something like that. However, I will say, season 5, probably one of the only times when her best was in season 5. her best moments were in season 5 because she brought back some of that like character personality while she didn't have many moments to redeem herself. Like her, she was using her, what she does best. She's really good with firearms and whatnot, and she was able to battle strategies and stuff like that. But also, like, I wouldn't say that she had a moment to make up with Steve and Jonathan about that, but with the whole main plot about being Vecna and everything at that point, I can kind of understand with like her, like, there wasn't many moments that she was able to talk with Steve and Jonathan about things, but like, at least she was kind of had a human, like, kind of a personality again by season 5. And at the very end, whenever she's hanging out with Robin and Jonathan and Steve at the very end, and like at the epilogue, that was when we were like, okay, I can kind of understand it now. Like, I can kind of see how people like her character now. But seasons 1 through 4, man, there was just so many moments that I just couldn't like her character. I mean, there are a couple of moments that she had, there's cool moments, I guess, but not like enough to like her character enough. But in season 5, like at the very end in the epilogue, I'm like, okay, this could be we could have a cool spinoff. Now, I'm not sure if the whole Nancy Wheeler spinoff is a thing, but they're talking about her like wanting to become a journalist and stuff, and like maybe she could solve mysteries about like maybe there's some sort of leftover supernatural things that Vecna left over. Like Vecna's not going to come back, but like maybe there's like some sort of supernatural presence that's related to that they still need to hunt down, and maybe she can be like finding out that mystery, kind of like Nancy Drew sort of thing. Like I think that would be really cool if we got like a Nancy Drew, Nancy Wheeler, kind of like, I don't know, like a connection like that, like she becomes kind of like that kind of character. That could be an interesting spinoff, and I think they could really do that. Now, I'm not sure if that's actually confirmed, because I know the Duffer Brothers were also talking about making a spinoff that isn't tied to Stranger Things at all, so I'm not sure if that's the same spinoff. But if they do spinoffs of the show, they really have to think about these things, because you basically just ended everybody's character arcs except for Nancy and maybe a couple of other characters. Like, I know they said that Mike and Will's story isn't over, but like that sort of thing, I don't know if a spinoff would work well with that, if they're going to really take it that far. But Nancy, on the other hand, there could be a possibility if they do her character correct. So if there's a spinoff of Nancy Wheeler, I will watch the show, because I'm interested to see if they actually make her character right after all this time of her just doing irresponsible things after irresponsible things. And then by the time she's done being irresponsible and being responsible again, she's still a jerk to Steve and Jonathan, who's already been butchered as a character in season 4, and then Steve, who's the best character ever. And then also just like her only personality is that she's good with weapons. Like, she never has the moment where like any good like thing, like there's like one good thing about her character, and then like the rest of the stuff is bad, and then it kind of switches depending on the season. There's never a moment when there's a majority good things about her character, then minority bad, that's what I'm trying to say. Like, it's never like majority good things about her character, because one thing or another is always gonna be wrong about her character. But the Nancy Wheeler spinoff, if that's a thing, that could be a genuinely good spinoff show. Just, you have to do it right, and you have to like listen to the audience, and you have to pay attention to what they want. Because I have a feeling that the audience will know at this point, after seeing Stranger Things end and you want to make spinoffs, listen to the fans. They know what they're talking about. However, Stranger Things superfans, maybe, I don't know. But like people that can enjoy the show and also criticize it, like criticize both good and bad things about the show, I feel like that if you listen to them talking about it, you'll find that you can make a good spinoff show. I don't know. Anyway, so that is the rant on Stranger Things characters. I don't know how long it's ended. Okay, it's about 2 hours. Okay, well, I guess I had a lot to say about this show. And it was only 25 characters. So personally, I enjoy the show. Not my favorite show, definitely not anywhere in my top 10 or anything. But I did have fun watching this show. I had moments where I had fun, like hate watching a tiny bit, like the Lost Sister episode or something like that. I had a couple moments where I'm hate watching it, but majority-wise, I enjoyed, like, there's a lot of characters in the show that genuinely are good written characters. Maybe not throughout every single season, but like Hopper, Steve, Dustin, characters like that. I was surprised that they were able to do super well with those characters, because they're hard characters to write really well. I can see that, but they did those characters right, and other characters too. I feel like this show is really dependent on how the characters act, and that really depends on how good the season is dependent on the characters. And that's a lot of shows too. The characters are really important to make a good show. And I feel like that Stranger Things is very divisive when it comes to that, but there are good moments and there are bad moments about the show. And I think that's what makes the show a really good, solid show. And I think that's what people need to realize. So, but yeah, Stranger Things, it's, it's a show that I have nerded out before on, and I've just nerded out about now. But yeah, these characters really make the show, whether it's a good or bad thing. But I do like the show, and I enjoyed watching it. And the finale, I can't believe it's here after all this time, but it's done. The show's done. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. But yeah, that will end off the Stranger Things rants officially. And this is the first episode of, well, for me, of 2026 and the first day of 2026. So I hope that this is a good year and a year for Entertainment Maniac, hopefully, but other channels too, obviously, that do similar stuff to this. I wish them well. But yeah, I hope you guys have a good year, and we'll see you in the next video.